right, let's jump right in. We're going to explore how to look at these incredible ancient epics not as some kind of flawed science, but as what they truly are, profound human documents. And we're going to do it by applying a rational, evidence-based lens. So get this story from the Mahabharata. A queen gives birth, not to a child, but to a single lump of flesh. A wise sage comes along, cuts it into 100 pieces, puts each piece into a pot of ghee, and basically incubates them. And what happens? 100 healthy sons are born. So, what are we supposed to do with a story like that? I mean, is that supposed to be literal history? A biological account? Or, just maybe, are we asking the completely wrong question here? And that question brings us to this fundamental problem with how we usually approach these texts. We tend to get stuck in one of two traps, forcing ourselves into a choice that isn't really a choice at all. See, on one side, you have the literal error. That's when we try to cram beautiful poetry and allegory into the box of hard science. And on the other side, you've got the cynic's error, just throwing our hands up and dismissing these deep, complex psychological stories as just, well, a bunch of lies. The thing is, both of those views totally miss the point. But what if there's a third path? What if we can analyze the supernatural claims, see them for what they are, but still hold on to the psychological richness and cultural importance of these traditions? We don't have to dismiss them. We can translate them. To do that, though, we first have to get one thing straight. These beliefs were not set in stone. Not at all. They evolved over thousands of years, constantly being reshaped by massive cultural and philosophical shifts. I mean, just look at this timeline. It's an incredible journey. You start way back in the Indus Valley with ritual baths and nature symbols. Then, around 1500 BC, Indo-Aryan cultures arrive, kicking off the early Vedic period. This is the era of the Rig Veda, of massive fire sacrifices, and of a pretty rigid social structure, the Varna system, run by the Brahmin priests. But that system didn't last forever unchallenged. Around 800 BC, you get the Shramana movements. Think early Buddhism and Jainism. They pushed back, questioning Vedic authority, rejecting animal sacrifice, and introducing radical new ideas like nonviolence and karma. This created this amazing, dynamic world where different philosophies were constantly competing for the hearts and minds of kings and common people. And it's right in the middle of all that ferment that epics like the Mahabharata are born, weaving together old Vedic ideas with these powerful new reformist ones. So here's the crucial takeaway. The religion of the early Vedas, with its exclusive priest class and fire rituals, is worlds apart from the temple-based devotional Hinduism that shows up almost 2,000 years later. In fact, a lot of what we think of as core Hindu beliefs today were actually borrowed from its biggest challengers. The ideas of nonviolence and vegetarianism, those came directly from Buddhist and Jain thought. The Brahminical tradition was so good at this, it even co-opted the Buddha himself, turning him into another avatar of Vishnu. Talk about absorbing your competition. Okay, so let's get practical. Let's trace how this evolution plays out with one specific belief. We can actually watch a universal human feeling slowly morph into a complicated fear-based superstition. It all starts with something completely natural, the need to grieve and honor the people who came before us. That leads to healthy traditions, like ancestor veneration. But then it gets codified. A specialist class, the ritualists, they step in. Suddenly, your business failing or getting sick isn't just bad luck. It's a spiritual problem. Your ancestors are displeased. And from there, it's a short hop to a full-blown superstition like Pitradosh, where astrologers use medieval charts to diagnose these ancestral curses. And of course, they offer expensive ritual cures for a problem that has absolutely zero basis in empirical fact. All right, so with all that historical and psychological context in our back pocket, we can finally go back to the epic itself. Let's deconstruct the Mahabharata, not to tear it down, but to finally understand what it's really doing. First up, biology, just tossed right out the window. You have the 100 sons born from pots, conception happening just by chanting a mantra, a fetus learning military secrets while still in the womb. Look, these aren't bad attempts at science. They're literary tools. They're there to tell you that a character is divine or that their heroism is literally baked in from birth. Next up, physics. A sari that never ends, unspooling infinitely to protect a woman's honor. A warrior who gets to choose the exact moment of his own death. A vision that contains the entire universe in one being. Again, the point isn't to obey the laws of physics. The point is to create these incredibly powerful allegories about justice, duty, and spiritual truth. And finally, we have the ancient tech fallacy. This is the one where people try to say that divine weapons like the Brahmastra were actually ancient nuclear bombs, or that celestial chariots were airplanes. But that's just a massive category mistake. These are poetic descriptions of ultimate power, something you find in myths all over the world. They aren't blueprints for lost technology. And there's absolutely zero archaeological evidence, none, to back up any of those claims. So if the epic isn't a literal history book, and it's not a science textbook, then what in the world is it? Well, once we stop trying to force it to be something it's not, we can finally see its true structure. The real architecture of the epic is this beautiful, balanced mix of four things. About a quarter of it is pure mythological storytelling, the fantastic stuff that creates a sense of awe. Another quarter is deep philosophical symbolism, diving into ideas about consciousness and the cosmos. The third quarter is powerful moral allegory, teaching us about justice and human nature. And that last quarter, it's just clever narrative devices, tricks the storyteller uses to solve problems, like how to describe a huge battle from everywhere at once. And here's the most important takeaway from all of this. Rejecting literalism isn't an attack. It's actually an act of restoration. It's about chipping away the brittle, fragile shell of pseudoscience and superstition to get to the real, lasting power of the text. Its incredible insights into ethics, philosophy, and what it means to be human. Ultimately, trying to make these epics behave like modern science is to misunderstand both science and myth. It's just not what they're for. But when we learn to read them as they were meant to be read, as allegories, as philosophy, as deep dives into our own psychology, that's when we give them the profound intellectual dignity they've always deserved. So, what other stories do you think could be better understood if we just looked at them through this lens?